All right, welcome to Get NIST-y, the series that breaks compliance out of the checkbox trap and turns it into a real security advantage. No fluff, no FUD, just practical strategies to make compliance work for your MSP. I'm Jared Kasner, and I'm joined by my co-founder of Blacksmith InfoSec and co-host of Get NIST-y, Michael Zabarski. Today, we are going to be talking about our predictions for what's going to happen in compliance and cybersecurity in 2026. Very much guessing that we're going to get some of this stuff right and some of this stuff wrong. And so when we look back in December of 2026, we'll do kind of a look at how we did and how accurate we were in our predictions. Mike, you want to start with something that you think is like super obvious that is absolutely going to happen for sure, no questions asked in 2026?
Yes, AI is going to take over. No, so we've already kind of started seeing this a little bit in 2025. I think it's going to become rampant in 2026. AI is very much an accelerator. People are becoming very much dependent on AI for everything. And what we're seeing is faster releases of codes from vendors, clear code from vendors. And so we have a big issue that we need to solve for is how do you, again, use AI as an accelerator, because you should, but also still keep the human in the loop, still do all the QA testing, not just vibe code enterprise or apps, etc. And so I think the really big thing that's going to come into scope really is going to be that third party risk management, right? Looking at your vendors, looking at your supply chain, making sure that they are still producing high quality software and solutions that are not going to disrupt your business.
Yeah. I think there's the old project management axiom that the three pillars of the triangle are speed, quality, and cost. Pick two. And what we're seeing is that play out in real time right now, exactly as you're talking about, right? Where we have completely sacrificed the quality axis because we're able to go so much faster and so much cheaper using AI to develop software. And so, I saw this in Discord in one of the MSP Discord chats the other day. Hey, I'm noticing that I'm having to update every week or every 3 days for this particular application. Yeah, you are. You're seeing things come out much faster. And sometimes that's a good thing, and sometimes that's less good because the quality is going down overall. And we're seeing just rampant bugs and things that aren't working because companies are taking I can just fix it in the next release and moving forward that way, right? And so we're going to continue to see that play out. I've seen this also. Some companies that I advise went through a phase of completely abdicating code reviews to AI, and there are some good AI code review tools out there, but they took the human out of the loop in that, and things started to get through that they really were not happy with, and including they finally put the system or they finally put the human back in the loop in this, and within a week of putting the human back in the loop on all of their code reviews, one of their developers tried to push a change out that would have exposed their system prompt for this AI company. Right? Like the core meat and potatoes of what makes of their intellectual property was going to be exposed to the world, and the AI code reviewer had given it a thumbs up because it doesn't understand the context, right? It doesn't, as much as it understands the context of the code, it doesn't understand the context of the business. That it doesn't have that deeper understanding that the human is going to be able to look at. And so, yes, it can make you go faster. It can make you go cheaper, but you have to continue to focus on the quality yourself. Otherwise, you are going to lose control. So, what's our prediction around this? Is the prediction then that we see a major breach as a result of AI generated code in 2026?
I don't know about major breach. I think it'll be more around outages. We just went through a number between AWS, Azure, Cloudflare, etc. I think there's going to be more of that, where it's not necessarily breaches, is just failure to operate.
Yeah. So, I guess, did you notice that there was, because I went, at least with the AWS outage, I didn't see anything that attributed AI or use of
No,
AI in their AWS
yeah, no,
postmortem.
absolutely not. I did not see anything like that. But again, I think as we continually push out more and more sloppy code, I think that's what's going to happen is infrastructure will start to crumble more so than just breaches. That's my prediction. That's my tinfoil hat prediction. That's why I should have worn a tinfoil hat for this episode.
It's not too late. I'll vamp while you go get tinfoil out of your kitchen if you need to.
Perfect.
Cool. All right. So, some sort of outage or breach or something that is let's call it directly attributable to AI and sloppy practices related to AI in 2026. And I think we'll see this. My gut is honestly, we'll see this at a microcosm where it may not make public news, but we've already seen lawyers getting in trouble in front of in the courtroom for using hallucinated legal research. I think we're going to see probably somebody's going to end up getting sued because their contract was written by AI and doesn't pass muster, and they're going to end up not being able to defend their contracts that they've written with AI. I think we're probably going to see companies that have written security policies with AI that miss check marks and end up in trouble. I think AI is going to start to, we're going to start to see some of the cracks in AI. And again, to your point, AI is a huge accelerator. We at Blacksmith use AI every single day in our business. This is not an indication that AI is a bad thing. It's just our prediction is that there are going to be companies who are too lax and not putting the human in the loop and not checking the output of that and are going to get themselves into trouble. Yep. All right. So that's the AI prediction. How about let's look at federal regulation first, and then I think we'll talk about state regulation second. But let's talk about federal regulation first. Uh, let's see. I think projected to actually start being enforced this year or in 2026. Yes.
Yes, absolutely.
And do we think that actually happens?
Yes.
All right. You heard it here first. That is going to happen. How about HIPAA?
I'm bullish on HIPAA. Bullish, hopeful. I think HIPAA gets updated in 2026. I don't know when 2026. My guess is towards the end of the year, but I am optimistic around that. I think that would be huge.
Yeah, I think we saw enough bad things happen in healthcare in 2025 that it is no longer optional for HIPAA to come, and so I'm likewise, I'll call it cautiously optimistic that we get some real updates to HIPAA, including hopefully some teeth in 2026. CISA, does it survive 2026?
Every fiber in my being wants to say, I hope so, even with all of its flaws. Like, it really needs to, right? Or be replaced with something that does something very similar. We'll call it CISA 2.0. But yeah, no, I mean, so there's a couple of people throwing around the way to extend it for an additional 10 years and modernize it. That would be great if we can do that. Adding AI provisions to it and critical infrastructure provisions to it to make sure that stuff around that has the same kind of protections. Again, I'm an optimist. um, I think it'll get extended. I don't know if it'll get modernized. I think, and this is not a CISA concern that I have. This is a governmental ability to do anything concern that I have. And whether they actually pass something to extend it past 2026. I think it will get extended past 2026. I don't think they're gonna let it just die. I don't know if they'll get the 10-year plan extension and like some people are hoping for.
Yeah, no, I would agree with you. I think given the level of dysfunction that we have seen in our legislature in the last 20 years and in the last year in particular, NPR just did something that talking about, or maybe it's New York Times, one of those left leaning news organizations, came up with something the other day showing in the last 2 years of the Biden administration, there's been like 240 pieces of legislation that were approved of various sizes in the so-called 120 a year, 10 a month kind of thing, right? So far in the first 11 months of the Trump administration, it's been like 43 pieces of legislation that have gotten signed into law. And so our ability to legislate has gone completely out the wayside or by the wayside. And so I think it's we're looking at the healthcare extensions and even just passing the continuing resolutions. Our ability to function in any sort of bipartisan manner has completely gone by the wayside. Our ability to operate as a federal government. And so I think the best case scenario for CISA this year is another 12-month or maybe 11-month extension that kicks the can down the road until after the midterms. And I think that's going to come right down to the wire, and we're going to be looking at another 11th hour save like we did in 2025. But I am less optimistic about the fate of CISA than you are.
Yeah. Well, and there would be some very detrimental things that happen if CISA goes away.
Well, and I mean, we're already starting to see some of that, right? And I think there may even be a further erosion of what CISA does and its mandate and how it operates in 2026. I think before it gets modernized and before it gets improved, it has to get worse before it can get better. All right, so that's the federal regulate. Any other federal regulations or regulatory bodies that you think are we should keep an eye on in 2026?
Not right now, at least. They're always gonna, yeah, not right now.
All right.
The only thing that may happen and doubtful is update to CMMC to align to 800.171 R3 versus R2.
Okay.
So that could be in the cards. I don't know if that'll actually happen in 2026. We'll see.
All right. Cool. So that leaves a big looming question mark around Federal Privacy Act that probably will never happen, at least at the rate that we're going. And so let's talk about state level regulation, both in privacy and cybersecurity, and what we're forecasting here.
Yeah, it's going to continue being a mess like it currently is. So that's being regulated at the state level, at the vertical at the state level. If you look at New York, they've got how many different state level regulations? One for Department of Financial Services, one for hospitals, one they've got New York Shield Law. Like even the state can't manage things holistically at the state level. And so, there's over 20 states that have their own privacy regulations now. That's going to continue increasing as more and more states roll out some level of privacy regulation, which makes it ultra fun for companies to deal with. And so the reality of it is, I think it's going to continue kind of doing what it's doing now. And we've seen this kind of, even when we have tried to do something good, if you will, we've seen states balk at it and just say, no, we're going to do our own thing. Perfect example is we had FedRAMP. That was hard to do. So we created StateRAMP. And then Texas said, hey, we're going to make TXRAMP just for Texas. Awesome. Thanks, Texas.
But on the plus side, there's like a 98% overlap with state ramp, so it's at least closely aligned. But yes, why we needed the 1 or 2% differences specific to the state of Texas, who knows? But everybody wants to do their own thing, right?
Yeah. And so I think that's what's going to continue happening. We're going to continue limping along, trying to figure out, hey, how do we align to all this stuff? And we shall see how many different frameworks people need to align to if they want to do business across state lines.
Yeah, I think that's going to continue to be an issue. All right, so let's talk about non-governmental regulators, which in my mind includes AICPA, but also cyber insurance companies, and quite frankly, your customers and clients. I think one of the things that we're already starting to see, insurance companies are becoming much less focused on the controls that you have in place and much more focused on the size of your business when it comes to the premiums and how much they're charging you for cyber insurance. Now, they will absolutely deny coverage if you lie on your cyber insurance application. So you want to be completely factually accurate when you are filling out those cyber insurance applications, so you're not risking denial of coverage. But we're already seeing coverage be accepted even if you don't have great controls in place, which is somewhat terrifying. But the size of your premiums and how much you're going to be paying, and the coverage that you're being allocated is starting to be driven increasingly by the size of your business, which in some ways makes a ton of sense, right? The liability for $1 million a year business versus the liability for $1 billion a year business is drastically different. But if we're not enforcing the controls, and in 2025 we had a conversation with Michael Kennedy about what was going to drive compliance in the future, and we thought maybe one of those things would be cyber insurance vendors, and I think we're seeing that is actually starting to slow down. Like it looked like it was ramping up for a while, and now it seems to be slowing down. So I think we're going to continue to see, unfortunately, a deceleration there. I think we're already seeing rubber stamp auditors from the AICPA and kind of the hollowing out of SOC 2. If I can go off and find a CPA firm that will just check the box or confirm my check the box compliance. And so we're seeing people say SOC 2 is dead. I don't know that it's dead, but certainly we're seeing auditors that are being much more willing to just confirm that boxes are checked and not actually do any sort of verification. And so I think, honestly, my prediction is that a lot of third-party risk management is going to come down to clients holding their vendors accountable and going through and doing their own sort of audits, which means that the third-party risk management side of things, the onus becomes on the vendors actually doing things and being willing to respond to security questionnaires from their clients and being willing to respond to those accurately, and the clients having the bandwidth and the wherewithal to hold their vendors accountable. And I think what we're so there's a risk, a real risk of clients just again doing the same thing as AICPA or some there's and don't get me wrong, there's some very good AICPA auditors out there. So I don't want to denigrate the whole thing because there are like really good ones out there. But I think there are just as many, or if not more, check the box auditors or rubber stamp auditors out there. And so, and if I'm as a client willing to just accept that rubber stamped audit, I'm the one taking the risk as a client.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there, Jerry.
Go unpack it all.
We'll start with cyber insurance. I think you're right. I think the way it's going, it's going to be a pendulum, right? I think cyber insurance providers swung too far, looked for too many controls. Now they're swinging back too far the other way. Eventually, they'll land in a happy spot of something sane, because when they're expecting an 853 high compliant program for a bakery, like, that's ridiculous. I have not heard of anything like that. Just wanted to make a point. But at the same time, I was actually at a talk by Dustin Bolander the other day, and he was saying that, like, if you don't have MFA today and you come to him looking for a cyber policy, he can name 4 policies off the top of his head that'll give you coverage with no MFA in place. And so it was really interesting for me, because I had not realized that we had swung back quite so far. And so I think it's going to kind of hit that. We'll start having a bunch of breaches, and they'll start swinging back because, again, insurance companies don't like to pay out. And so they'll start putting same controls back in place. So that's the cyber insurance piece. I think on the ACPA front, you're 100% correct. We've seen in our careers all sorts of shenanigans, from let's scope the company to this one laptop, and that's all that's going to be in scope for the SOC 2 audit, to, hey, like, auditors aren't even looking at stuff. They're just in the GRC platform, see everything is green and rubber stamp it, as you said. So I think AACPA needs to do something to solve for that. And whether it's they need to start auditing auditors about how they audit, and how the auditors audit the auditors about how they're auditing the audits. Let's see how many times we can use audit in one sentence.
There's a George Carlin sketch about using the one word, it's every word in the sentence, but not appropriate for the podcast.
I think the other piece of this is, and it's going to be a hard one, right? Because the third-party risk management piece is always very difficult to do, because you need some sort of questionnaire that makes sense for the client. Because I know both of us have filled out tons of questionnaires where, like, hey, 90% of this questionnaire doesn't apply to this company. Why are these questions being asked? And you don't allow me to say not applicable. I have to choose yes or no. So scoping the questionnaire correctly for the company you're trying to assess, understand the criticality of the vendor, understand what kind of data they have access to, etc. And then actually doing something with the response, right? Actually looking at it and saying, is there risk here? How do we quantify this risk? Do we still want to do business with this vendor, or do we want to look for an additional vendor that doesn't have all these risks? I've kind of seen it all, and I've seen it fail across the board, from, hey, here's a 500 question questionnaire, fill this out. And I've pushed back on companies before they've sent me those. I'm like, we're not doing this. Like, this was before you and I started Blacksmith, right? When I was running internal IT and security, it was a conversation of, yeah, this makes no sense for us to fill out, and I'm not going to spend 3-4 hours filling the questionnaire when we can have a half-hour conversation and come up with some sort of sane, appease your mind, like appease your curiosity discussion. And I know that no one's going to look at it, again, unless you're working with a very large organization that actually does full-on due diligence. But in the SMB space, no one's really looking at those questionnaires, which is also a problem. And when they do look at it, they don't have the context to say, hey, yes, this client isn't using MFA as an example, but guess what? They're our t-shirt vendor. If they have a breach, guess what? There's plenty of other t-shirt vendors. That's fine. There needs to be more context to it. And so, it's a mix of risk and criticality of the vendor, and having someone actually put all that into context and say, yes, we should proceed or we shouldn't proceed.
Yep. All right, so we've circled this one quite a bit here without actually making a real prediction. So my prediction is AI CPA makes no changes in 2026, and we continue to have a proliferation of rubber stamp auditors, and we have a proliferation of people complaining about SOC 2 and AI CPA. I think it gets worse before it gets better. So that's prediction number one. I think prediction number two is cyber insurance continues to roll back some of the, to your point, they went too far in one direction of asking for everything. I think they're going to overcompensate and swing back too far the other way before they find the sweet spot in the middle. So that's my second prediction for 2026. And then prediction around third-party risk management. You go.
So I agree with your first two predictions. Third-party risk management, I think, is going to become more important, and I think nothing's going to happen with it. I think it's going to continue being the mess that it currently is. There needs to be sane. So in the SMB space, especially, right, there needs to be a way that people can conduct this and actually do this, as I said, in a sane, repeatable way across their vendor space.
Isn't that the SIG Light? Come on.
Yeah, exactly. It's like full or nothing. And so there are some vendors that do TPRM surveys very well out there, and they're great, but also not necessarily affordable at the SMB space. So again, this all goes back to how does an SMB run its business in affordable, repeatable fashion.
All right. Well, I think that's probably enough predictions and prognostications for 2026. Let's pause here. I'm sure we will be proven right very quickly on some of these and wrong very quickly on some of these, and others we'll have to wait until the end of the year to find out for sure whether we were right or wrong. In the meantime, we're looking forward to a great 2026 full of episodes answering questions. Speaking of which, if you want to get your questions about compliance or cybersecurity answered, please head on over to blacksmithinfosec.com/ask. You can ask any questions you want there. We'll make sure to get those featured on an upcoming episode. We do promise we will get through the entire backlog of episodes, even if it takes us the next 10 years. Mike and I are in this for the long haul, so please keep those questions coming. We will get through all of them in time. Thank you, everyone, and look forward to a happy 2026 for you. Get NIST-y!